In a dramatic pivot that has shocked allies and critics alike, President Joe Biden's recent decision to withhold military aid to Israel has ignited a firestorm of controversy and accusations. At the heart of the uproar is Biden's stance on Israel's proposed operation in Rafah, Gaza, a move that critics argue dangerously aligns US foreign policy with groups hostile to Israel and threatens to undermine the global fight against terrorism. Amidst bipartisan criticism and calls for accountability, the administration also faces domestic scrutiny over economic policies and claims of economic recovery that contrast sharply with public sentiment and rising consumer prices. How will these contentious decisions shape Biden's legacy and America's standing on the global stage? Will this mark a critical misstep in US foreign policy, potentially recalibrating international perceptions of American resolve against terrorism and its commitment to its allies?
Welcome to TFI Global, the antidote to mass delusion.
President Joe Biden's decision to withhold military aid to Israel if they proceed with an operation in Rafah, Gaza, has sparked intense controversy and accusations of betrayal. This choice aligns perilously close to the views of groups hostile to Israel, thus marking a significant and troubling shift in US foreign policy. By stopping the shipment of critical munitions to an allied nation on the precipice of a military operation against Hamas, Biden not only undermines Israel's strategic initiatives but aligns US policy with objectives that starkly contrast its long-held anti-terror stance. The implications of this decision extend far beyond military logistics. They convey a message that the US might be abandoning its foundational commitment to combating terrorism and supporting global stability. Biden's comments, as reported, suggest a dangerous pacifism towards groups with recognized histories of violence against civilians. The decision to halt these shipments, based on the premise of preventing civilian casualties, inadvertently positions the US on a slippery slope, suggesting a tolerance for the agendas of groups like Hamas, recognized widely for their terror activities. Criticism from figures like former GOP House Speaker Newt Gingrich and Senator John Fetterman underscores the depth of the betrayal felt within the political circles, indicating a bipartisan dismay at the stark pivot in US foreign relations. Furthermore, the notion floated by former Vice President Mike Pence about possible impeachment proceedings for not honoring foreign aid commitments accentuates the gravity of Biden's actions and the perceived dereliction of his executive duties. This move by Biden could be seen not just as a tactical error, but as a strategic blunder that might recalibrate international perceptions of US resolve against terrorism. It potentially signals a weakening of the long-standing US-Israel alliance and a disturbing acquiescence to the pressures exerted by terrorist-labeled entities and their sympathizers. This policy could very well be remembered as a critical misstep, undermining the global fight against terror and altering the course of US foreign policy in the Middle East. President Joe Biden's administration echoes the very actions for which they once condemned another leader. The withholding of foreign aid, previously approved by Congress, aligns disturbingly with what the Democrats impeached former President Donald Trump for concerning Ukraine. Now it appears Biden opts for a similar path, only this time the stakes involve Israel and its defense against terrorism. Stop the threats, Joe. America stands with Israel, implores former Vice President Mike Pence, of whom I'm not a big fan, but this time he's right, like a broken watch, 2 times a day. He reminded Biden and his administration of their predecessors' vehement stance. Amidst this turmoil, Biden asserts a facade of economic prowess, claiming a strong economy in the lead-up to the general election, despite the public's outcry over economic concerns being their foremost worry. Contradictions abound as Biden's negative net approval on economic policies, a dismal reflection of public sentiment. Yet, Biden confidently declares, "We have already turned it around," a statement as detached as it is delusional, considering the ongoing economic pressures American citizens face. The president's refusal to attribute rising inflation and economic strain to his policies, instead blaming corporate greed, exposes a profound disconnect from the consequences of his administration's decisions. While proclaiming job growth and economic improvements, the stark reality speaks differently, with only a modest increase in jobs and a huge uptick in unemployment. Furthermore, Biden's recent appearance in Racine, Wisconsin, promoting a hefty data center project does little to mask the underlying economic challenges or justify his contentious foreign policy decisions. His administration's decision to potentially jeopardize a critical ally in the Middle East by pulling vital memory aid is not just a diplomatic error, but veers dangerously close to empowering the agendas of terrorist organizations opposed to Israel. This move not only undermines the global fight against terrorism, but also places Biden squarely within the spheres of hypocrisy criticized so fiercely by his administration. It represents a profound betrayal, not just of Israel, but of the very principles of international solidarity and counterterrorism that the US has championed for decades.